Yes, I do. It means I have multiple identities, but one of that, very important one, is European. I think certainly I was feeling it way before the Iron Curtain fell down. Um, I was aware of the duplicity of Europe soon. It means that the Europe is the continent of the greatest culture and the cradle of the civilization, somehow most rich in the heritage, in the cultural heritage continent, but in the same time, and also in the cradle of the freedoms of the human freedoms and human rights and several revolutions and in the same time that is the continent where the humanity was able to show its worst face. So this identification with Europe is not the simple and optimistic one. I know that what happened in the first part of 20th century and what happened before in the empires of the colonization can happen again. And the sources of that, the sources of the best and the sources of the worst for the humanity are coming from Europe. Certainly it was Holocaust. During my lifetime, the worst moments in European recent history was, I think, Yugoslavian war and the rise of the new nationalistic movements and of right-wing populism. And incapacity to deal with the heritage of the colonization. Somehow, you know, the worst what I could observe in Europe when during my life, it was the indifference to the crimes against humanity, the genocides, and the lack of the empathy and the solidarity with other continents and with the other races and religions. Creation of European Union and the ideas which were standing behind. I understand the reasons of the creation of European Union and certain European solidarity. It is the need to create some kind of the vaccine against the nationalism. It was the lesson from the Second World War and the Holocaust. And for the quite long time, this organization was dynamic by the hope. The crisis started a few years ago after the crisis of 2008, and unfortunately today the future of this unity is problematic and is endangered. It certainly reinforced very strongly my European identity and my feeling to belong to the wider community than the national one. In the moment when Poland, my native country, joined European Union and had been accepted as a full member in this organization. And I felt not only the feeling of belonging, but also the feeling of certain security. and solidarity. Of course, it is not the paradise, and it is very difficult to keep on in the state of efficiency the organization, which is so polyphonic somehow, and where the members, where everybody has the same voice, and at the same time the interests and the traditions and the level of the economic standard and civilization standard are so diverse. But till some point, I was quite optimistic, and I still want to believe that we don't have another solution than some kind of the unity, even reinforced by some kind of the federalization, because if not, Europe as a continent of wealth and justice will not prevail. The agreements in terms of the climate changes and the efficiency in realization of this agenda. And I think this agenda exactly, similar somehow to pandemic, shows that the challenges and dangers of the modernity are global, and only together we will be able to face and eventually resolve or mild those dangers. Unfortunately, it shows also how dysfunctional is actual political system, actual democracy. The crisis of democracy is much deeper than the crisis of the institution like European Union, because it is the liberal democracy is the democracy of the polls. The politicians are unable to see and to form their agenda in further and wider than only the perspective of the opinion polls and the closest elections. And the problems which humanity faces right now are way beyond this perspective, and needs different way of make politics. So I don't believe personally in the capacity to reform of national governments, but in the same time, the European Union is non-efficient because only one voice only of one state member can stop any radical or any important reforms or resolutions. So the big mistake is here, and we know it from Polish history, because Polish state by the end of 18th century fall apart and they disappeared from the maps of Europe exactly because of its inefficiency, because of liberum veto. It means that one member of the parliament was able to stop any decision. But Polexit is not impossible, especially that the way to do it, to make it effective, is very simple. It's not necessary to change the constitution. It's not necessary to make the referendum, where actually certainly Poles are very pro-European, pro-Union, but it can change, of course, with the massive propaganda and the fake news. You know, the British citizens know it pretty well how efficient this kind of the politics can be. But even if majority of Poles will remain against Polexit, the politicians have the possibility, by having the simple majority in the parliament, to make this decision. And I'm not sure that in some point, if the populist government, like government of peace and justice, will remain, they will not decide to do it if economically it will be not so interesting anymore to remain, because for those kind of the politicians, it's only financial reason keep them to stay in the union. So it is possible that it will gonna happen. Somehow Poland, as a state of right, as a state of justice, with the judiciary which is unfunctional and which are non-compatible today even with the judiciary of European Union. Poland partly already is exited already important elements of European Union, and it can be deeper and can continue. I think it is real danger. And in terms of the importance and political weight of Poland inside of European Union, it diminished in the last 5 years enormously. Practically, Poland lost any kind of the power to influence union politics in other way than just to slow down the most progressive agendas. We have to be somehow optimistic, even though it will be too gloomy to stay on this earth, especially with the situation we are living in now. But apart of the need for some kind of the hope, and the new generation certainly provokes more hope of hope than the old generation. I see the real change of the mentality and conscience, and I see this generation different from the previous, especially young women. And if I'm speaking about the generation, my biggest hope concerned the young women, from the high school students through the university students, and also even non so well educated part of the population in the smaller towns and even in the villages. That the women first have different conscience of the future. They refuse the authorities of recent current political class, and what is the most important, of the church, of the Catholic Church. Most of them remained Catholics, but their attitude toward the learning of Polish Catholic Church, which is some kind of the fundamentalistic sector in our days, is much more critical than the previous generation. And also they are more conscious of the future dangers. And ecological conscience is much deeper than the generations of before. And the women rights and human rights are more important for this generation, and they know that they have to fight for that if they want to be part of this world of values. I think that they will be successful. I don't know in the longer terms. I'm not sure if it will gonna happen. It will not gonna happen over this current political regime, but after the elections, and I hope, I'm not sure if we can await the free elections in Poland. Certainly, the propaganda will be massive, and it's quite difficult for the political party to fight this kind of the massive propaganda of the public television, public medias, and the church. But if peace will lose the next elections, I'm pretty sure that in the next parliament some liberalization, some sort of the liberalization of procreative reproduction rights will happen. Will gonna happen. I think that it became clear that it's inevitable. But I don't think that that we are able to have the combination of the parties which will allow the um, deep liberalization. I think that it will be step by step, but it's also possible that, some kind of, we don't know, we don't know anything about the future, frankly. It's what pandemic taught us, that the future is totally unknown. So the dynamics of the social changes and political changes, it's quite difficult to predict. But I'm pretty sure that yes, the women will achieve some state of self-conscience, which is practically impossible to destroy. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they have to do more. In the same time, it is difficult because the lack of the imagination made European Union not prepared for the country, for the changes in the member states, going in undemocratic direction, and they didn't expect that the state can break not only the European treaty, the philosophy of the state of justice, but also own constitution of this state member. So the ways, the efficient and the rightful methods to react to this kind of the situation are practically are very difficult to use. They are, it's very ambiguous situation. It's the the efficiency of the European Union in the situation is limited by lack of efficient means how to deal with that, and how to punish, or how to exclude some kind of the parties which are breaking the rules. But still, I think that the reaction of the Union can be more faster, and that it is against the very, very interest of European Union to accept the behavior like Hungarian or Polish right now. It certainly it weakened European Union altogether, and I think that behind behind the national governments who are choosing the populistic anti-constitutional politics, it's also the Putin's politic, which which is realizing in this way his agenda of the destruction or deconstruction of European Union as a united and strong political unity. Well, I don't know. Nothing comes to. It means it's a lot of movies which are dealing with the social and political and historical questions, which are referring to those values. But I don't see the movie which will be like representation like of those values. It will be more propaganda movie than the artistic examination of the reality.